Welcome to the first video in the Parts Replacer series. Today, we are taking valve springs out of a cylinder head. Typical valve spring, nothing fancy. This particular one we're working on today is a 6.9 International diesel engine, common in International S1600 series and other international trucks, and better known for its role in the early pre-power stroke for diesels. Yes, there is a pre-power stroke. That being said, they're good, reliable engines, and this one is completely shot due to a foreign object in the combustion chamber, which actually lifted ahead, and there's a bunch of rust. So I'm taking this apart to use the valve springs in another project that you'll probably see at a later point. There's going to be a spring-loaded mount for an Eaton Fuller transmission. So let's start here. You have a couple different pieces. You have your valve spring I just showed you, and then you have your actual valve. Valve is what opens all air in and out of the cylinder. This groove right here has a little keeper. A little keeper has a matching groove, if I can grab this thing, a little oily, inside of it. That matching groove goes in to the groove on the valve itself, as you can see. The taper on the keeper fits in the taper on the retainer, so the whole assembly goes together like so, with two keepers, one on each side, and then now everything's retained together. Valve spring compressor is going to compress the spring. I can't do that by hand, I'm not that strong. So once the spring is compressed, you can go ahead and remove the keepers with your magnet and take the assembly off. So, quick little guide for you here. There's a couple different styles of valve spring tools. This particular one is it's an Ampro. Got this on discount when I think Pep Boys changed their tool brand out that they use. So either way, it works decent. You also have the big C clamp style that'll clamp on the bottom of the head and has a similar design to these here that'll go onto your keeper. So what happens is these little prongs go underneath the coils in the spring, and these L-shaped pieces will go onto your retainer, your keeper, and when you push the handle, it compresses the spring. So here's a quick guide. First thing first, take your tool, get it positioned so you can compress the spring. You can spin the handle, as you can see here, to compress the, or to get the part that'll compress the spring resting on the keepers in place, and then give it a good push. Wiggle everything loose. And that one was a little too tight, I knew that. Okay, so get it compressed. There we go. We got past the halfway point on this cam-shaped piece, and that's going to allow it to kind of just sit there and do its thing. So that makes it a little easier. Now this one's sticking in there pretty good. Few smacks don't wind up doing what you need it to do, so we're going to grab a hammer. Nice ball peen. Careful here. Just a few light taps and it'll break loose. Now you can hopefully see the keepers are loose. We're going to go ahead and put our magnet tool in here and pull out one keeper and spin it around so I can hopefully get to the other. Now valve spring will just come off. Release the tool, slide the valve spring out, and you're done. And go through one more quick. Hopefully I can pick up the camera here and get you a little better close-up of the whole assembly. So you can put 2 and 2 together as far as what is happening here. And right there's why you got to be a little careful, especially with these springs that have a internal spring in there. Sometimes they're for extra force. Sometimes the internal spring is just because they need something to keep the spring from, well, doing what springs do and bouncing around. So it's a little bit of a dampener. Broke that one loose. You're doing a high-end race engine, don't break out your hammer. Your daily driver, the hammer will be fine. You got one keeper. And then we'll get the camera in close for you here. Hopefully get to see the second. Okay, now you can see the keepers much more clearly. We're going to go ahead. Already got the one out on this half. We're going to take our magnet tool and we're going to pull the one out on the other half. So you got to wiggle things around once in a while. Get it to a place where you like it. Makes it easier is if you push the compressor away from where the keeper goes and pull your keeper out. Now the whole assembly comes off, and there you go. And one more thing we're going to cover here is, well, valve stem seals. You can see right here the valve has been removed. Here there's a valve. Here's a valve with a valve spring. This little piece is your valve stem seal. In this case, these are pretty bad shape, and actually I have 2 parts there. Actually 2 different styles. Huh. That means this head has had some work on it before. But you can see this one here has the little spring. It's a rubber piece. You can use a leverage tool, a pry bar, or you know, one of your cheap screwdrivers to pry that off and get access. Once you're done and you have that out, it's going to look something like that one there. And you just slide the new one on. You can do this with the valve in, or with the valve in, or with the valve out. Either way, it doesn't matter. Cool tip for doing this on a vehicle: if it's a gasoline engine, you can go ahead and put a adapter and spark plug hole to use your air compressor to compress, not compress, but pressurize the cylinder, which will keep the valve lifted and in place as long as you don't jar it around too much. And then you can leave the valve in, leave the head on. You don't have to pull ahead to do this. Now another thing we'll cover, since we have them on this engine, right here, this is a, I forget what Ford calls these. International probably has their own name, but it's a little lazy Susan pretty much for your valve. It's a rotating cup, that's what they're called. That allows your valve to sit on top and rotate a lot easier as the well, your valve spring sits on top and rotates a lot easier as the valve wants to rotate in its seat. So another little cool tip for you. I think we got this pretty well covered, and if you have any questions, feel free to post them up.